I've always been the good one. That's what they call me back home in Willow Creek, Ohio. Evie Parker, the good one. Straight A's since kindergarten. Youth group worship leader 3 years running. Scholarship kid headed to a private Christian college on the pre-med with a minor in biblical studies track. My senior quote in the yearbook was Philippians 4 verse 13, because of course it was. Mom still brags about me at Wednesday night Bible study like I'm some kind of trophy. Our Evelyn never gives us a lick of trouble, she says, patting my hand across the potluck table. Dad just nods, proud and quiet, the way he does when the Buckeyes score. And I smile. I always smile, because that's what good girls do. But here's the thing nobody back home knows. Sometimes when I'm alone in my dorm room with the lights off and my roommates asleep, I stare at the ceiling and feel like I'm suffocating inside a life that fits too perfectly. Like someone else picked out all my clothes, my major, my 5-year plan, even the way I part of my hair behind my ear when I'm nervous. And I've been wearing it all without complaining for almost 21 years. Then I met Rowan Blake. It was the first day of social psychology, 8 a.m. on a Tuesday, the kind of class nobody wants but everybody needs for their diversity credit. I got there 20 minutes early, because being late is a sin in the Parker family. Picked a seat in the third row center and arranged my color-coded notes like a good little soldier. That's when she walked in. Black ripped jeans, faded flannel over a band tee I didn't recognize. Short hair dyed the color of midnight sky with just the sides buzzed. She had a tattoo creeping up her neck. Something in script I couldn't read from my seat. And she moved like she already knew exactly where she belonged in the world. She dropped into the seat right next to me. Not in front of me, not behind me, next to me like it was the most natural thing in the world. "Morning," she said, voice low and warm like she'd known me for years. I mumbled something back. I think it was hi. My tongue felt thick. She smelled like coffee and cedar and something sweet smoke. I don't know how to describe it other than dangerous. The kind of dangerous that makes your heart forget its rhythm. Professor Nguyen started talking about conformity and the Ash experiments, but I barely heard a word. I was too busy pretending not to notice the way Rowan tapped her pen against her lip when she was thinking, or how she smirked every time the guy in the Jesus Saves hoodie tried to argue that obedience is always a virtue. At one point, Rowan leaned over and whispered, "You okay? You look like you're solving world hunger over there." I hadn't realized I was gripping my pen so hard the plastic was creaking. "I'm fine," I whispered back too fast. She gave me this look, half amused, half something I couldn't name, and went back to doodling in the margins of her notebook. Little stars and snakes and words and languages I didn't know. I spent the rest of the class trying to pray the feeling away. You know the one. The one that starts in your stomach and spreads like warmth after too much communion wine. The one Mom warned me about when she sat me down at 16 and told me about urges and temptation, and how some people choose to live in sin because they're too weak to fight it. I told myself it was nothing. Just curiosity. Just the devil trying to trip me up because I was doing so well. But when class ended and everyone started packing up, Rowan turned to me again. "Hey Evelyn, right?" I don't know how she knew my name. Maybe from the roll call. "Yeah," I said. "Evie, actually." "Evie," she repeated like she was tasting it. "I'm Rowan. Wanna grab coffee after this? I need caffeine or I'm gonna faceplant into my next lecture." I should have been an easy no. I had organic chemistry in 40 minutes. I had a paper on Romans due Friday. I had a life that didn't include girls with neck tattoos and eyes that looked like they'd seen everything and still found it beautiful. But my mouth said, "Sure." Just like that. And the scariest part wasn't her. It was the way my heart leapt like it had been waiting its whole life to say yes to something real. We didn't become best friends overnight. Nothing that dramatic. It was slower, sneakier, the way real things usually happen. First it was just coffee after social psych. Then it was studying together in the library because Rowan claimed my color-coded flashcards were borderline erotic, and she needed the entertainment. Then it was late-night walks across campus when the air smelled like fallen leaves and possibility. Rowan never pushed. Never asked the questions everyone else back home loved to fire at me like bullets. "So when are you and Caleb getting back together? Have you thought about grad schools with strong campus ministry? Honey, are you still saving yourself for marriage? Good for you." Rowan didn't ask any of that. She just let me exist. One Thursday night in October, we ended up on the roof of the arts building. Don't ask how. Rowan knew every unlocked door on campus like she'd mapped them in her sleep. We sat on the cold concrete ledge, legs dangling 3 stories above the quad, sharing a bag of sour gummy worms and a thermos of gas station hot chocolate. The sky was clear, stars sharp enough to cut yourself on. I remember thinking how weird it was that the same sky hung over Willow Creek, over my parents' house, over the church parking lot where I'd memorized every crack in the asphalt from praying in my car after youth group. I was quiet for a long time. Rowan didn't fill the silence. She just passed me the thermos when my fingers got cold. Eventually the words crawled out of me like they'd been hiding for years. Sometimes, I don't recognize myself anymore. I didn't look at her when I said it. I couldn't. I stared at the glowing windows of the dorms across the lawn instead. Little yellow squares full of people who probably knew exactly who they were. Rowan took a slow breath. Not dramatic. Just steady. That happens, she said, voice soft, when you've been living for other people. I laughed, but it came out wet. Yeah, well, it's worked pretty great so far. Good grades, happy parents, full ride scholarship. Everybody wins. Everybody except you. The words landed gentle but heavy, like snow that doesn't melt right away. I pulled my knees to my chest, wrapping my arms around them. My throat burned. I don't even know what I like. I whispered. Not really. I know what I'm supposed to like. I know the right answers. But if you took all of that away, I don't know what's left. Rowan was quiet again. Then she reached over and tugged one of my hands free, lacing her cold fingers through mine like it was the easiest thing in the world. You're still in there, Evie, she said. You don't have to perform for me. You don't have to be the version everyone else ordered. Just breathe for a second. I did. I breathed. And for the first time in maybe forever, the air didn't feel borrowed. We sat like that until the hot chocolate was gone and my toes went numb. She never asked me to explain more. Never tried to fix me. She just stayed. When we finally climbed down, my legs shaky from the height and something else, Rowan bumped her shoulder against mine. You're safe with me, Evie Parker, she said, grinning a little in the streetlight. No scripture verses required. I laughed for real that time, and somewhere between the rooftop and my dorm, I started to believe her. Some people aren't loud about the way they save you. They just become the kind of place where, for once, you don't have to hide from the storm. Rowan Blake was starting to feel like shelter. By November, we were something that didn't have a name yet. We had a routine Tuesday through Thursday coffee after class, Friday night walks to the 24-hour diner for burnt grilled cheeses and bottomless coffee, Saturday mornings at the little indie theater that showed old movies for $3. Rowan always paid for my ticket before I could dig out my wallet. I always pretended to be annoyed. We held hands in the dark of the theater. We kissed once, just once, behind the library stacks when the rain caught us without umbrellas. It was soft and slow and tasted like the peppermint gum she was always chewing. My whole body lit up like the 4th of July, and then immediately filled with panic. After that, I started keeping a careful distance. Not all the time. Just when other people might see. In the dining hall, I sat half a seat away instead of pressed against her side like I wanted to. When we walked across the quad and I spotted someone from the campus ministry, I let go of her hand so fast you'd think her skin burned me. Once, when Caleb, my ex, the one Mom still prayed I'd marry one day, walked toward us on the sidewalk, I actually stepped to the other side of Rowan like she was contagious. Every single time Rowan let me, she never yanked her hand back, never rolled her eyes. She just tucked her fingers into her pockets and kept walking, kept smiling that same calm, unreadable smile. But I started noticing the way her shoulders got a little tighter. The way her jaw did this tiny clench when I pretended we were just friends for the 100th time. I told myself I was protecting her. Protecting both of us. I wasn't ready and the world wasn't kind, and one day I'd be braver, I swore I would. But the truth was uglier. I was scared of losing everything I'd been taught to want more than I was scared of losing her. The night it broke open, we were on the hill behind the observatory. You can see the whole town from up there. The steeple of First Baptist glowing white against the sky, the football stadium lights, the highway snaking out toward home. We were lying on a blanket, sharing earbuds, some indie song I can't even remember now. Rowan's pinky was hooked around mine, the smallest possible point of contact, like she was testing whether I'd pull away again. I did. Not on purpose. My hand just twitched when I heard voices farther down the hill. Some guys from the soccer team. Laughing too loud, probably drunk. Rowan sat up, pulled the earbud out, looked at me for a long second in the moonlight. I can't do almost any more, Evie. Her voice was quiet, but it cut straight through me. I'm not asking you to spray paint rainbows on the chapel or tell your mom tomorrow or do anything you're not ready for. She exhaled, shaky. I'm tired of shrinking. I did that once with my own family. Made myself bite-sized so they could swallow me without choking. They still spit me out. I wanted to say something, anything, but my throat closed up. Rowan looked down at her hands. I won't make myself invisible to make you feel safe. I love you too much to hate myself that way again. The words I love you hung in the cold air like they were made of glass. I felt them hit the ground and shatter. She didn't yell. Didn't storm off. She just stood up, brushed the grass off her jeans and started folding the blanket. I sat there frozen while everything I'd been terrified of losing suddenly felt weightless compared to what I was losing right then. For the first time I understood. Hiding doesn't just trap you inside the closet. It locks the people you love on the outside. Reaching for a door you're too afraid to open. And some hurts don't make noise. They just leave quietly, taking pieces of you with them that you don't even notice are gone until it's too late. They showed up without warning on a Saturday in early December. I was in the dorm lounge, hair in a messy bun, wearing Rowan's oversized flannel because mine were all in the laundry, when my phone buzzed. Mom's surprise. We're 10 minutes away. Can't wait to see our girl. Red heart. My stomach dropped straight through the floor. I had exactly 9 minutes to sprint upstairs, change into the soft pink sweater Mom bought me last Christmas, scrub the remnants of Rowan's cologne off my neck, and text Rowan a frantic string of apologies. Rowan, it's okay. I get it. Rowan. Want me to disappear for the day? Me, I'm so sorry. Can you just be my classmate tonight? Please. The 3 dots appeared. Disappeared. Peered again. Rowan, sure. Evie. That sure felt colder than the wind whipping across campus. They took us all to Olive Garden, Mom's favorite fancy place. Dad prayed over the breadsticks. My little brother Ethan kept sneaking glances at Rowan like she was some kind of celebrity. Mom asked Rowan about her major, her hometown, her walk with the Lord. Rowan answered everything perfectly. Polite, charming, zero edge. She even laughed at Dad's corny jokes. I introduced her as my friend from psych. Every time I said the word friend, it tasted like rust in my mouth. By the time the check came, Mom was beaming. Such a nice girl. She whispered to me in the parking lot. You should bring her home for Christmas break. We'd love to have her. I smiled so hard my cheeks hurt. They left at 9. I waved until their taillights disappeared. Then I walked straight to Rowan's off-campus apartment, let myself in with the spare key she'd given me weeks ago, and sat on her couch in the dark until she got back from her shift at the campus coffee shop. She opened the door at 11:47 p.m., smelled like espresso and cold air. Saw me curled into the corner of the sofa, knees to chest, still wearing the pink sweater. Hey, she said softly. That was all it took. I broke. Not pretty crying. Ugly hiccuping, can't breathe crying. The kind where snot runs down your face and you don't even care. Rowan dropped her bag, knelt in front of me, and pulled me into her arms without asking a single question. I clung to her like she was the only solid thing left in the universe. I'm sorry, I kept choking out. I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry. She let me cry until my throat was raw and the front of her shirt was soaked. When the storm finally slowed, she carried me to her bed, tucked us both under the covers still fully clothed, and held me so tight I could feel her heartbeat against my spine. I hate myself, I whispered into the dark. Don't, she murmured against my hair. Just tell me what you're scared of. Out loud. All of it. So I did. I told her about the time I was 12 and Mom found a note I'd written to my best friend that said, I think I want to kiss you, and how Mom cried for 3 days and made me kneel and pray for forgiveness until my knees bled. I told her about Dad saying, we don't hate sinners, Evelyn, but we don't let them in our house either. I told her about the nightmares where I come home for Christmas with Rowan's hand in mine, and they shut the door in my face. About waking up shaking, convinced I'd be homeless by New Year's. I told her I was terrified of hell, of being wrong, but even more terrified of a heaven where there was no Rowan. When I finally ran out of words, the room was so quiet I could hear the radiator clanking. Rowan pressed her lips to my temple. I've been kicked out, she said, voice steady. I've slept in my car. I've lost every single person who was supposed to love me unconditionally. And yeah, it hurt like dying. But you know what hurt worse? She pulled back just enough to look me in the eyes. Losing myself. Pretending I was someone smaller, quieter, straighter just so they'd keep me. That almost killed me, Evie. A tear slid down her cheek, the first one I'd ever seen from her. I won't ask you to be brave on my schedule, she whispered. But staying silent has a price too. And the bill always comes due. Trust me, I've paid it. I stared at her, chest aching like something inside had cracked wide open. Not coming out doesn't keep you safe. It just trades one kind of loss for another. And the thing you lose when you stay hidden? It's you. The real you. The one God made, if you still believe in that, or the universe made or blind luck made. The one who deserves to breathe free. It didn't happen in one big cinematic scene. There was no swelling music, no slow motion walk through the rain. Just 1,000 tiny, terrifying yes. The first yes was to Lauren, my roommate since freshman year. The girl who'd seen me cry over organic chemistry and never once judged me for praying out loud when I was scared. I told her on a random Wednesday while we folded laundry. Hey, I need to tell you something. She kept matching socks, calm as ever. Okay. I'm in love with Rowan. Like in love. She's my girlfriend. Lauren looked up, grinned and said, Took you long enough to say it out loud. She's crazy about you, dummy. Then she hugged me so hard we both fell onto her bed laughing and crying at the same time. After that, the little yes started piling up. I stopped saying my friend Rowan and started saying my girlfriend Rowan. I let her tag me in Instagram stories instead of untagging myself at 2 a.m. When some guy in the dining hall muttered "Dykes" under his breath, I didn't pretend I hadn't heard. I looked him dead in the eye until he looked away first. The first time I held Rowan's hand walking past the campus chapel in broad daylight, my palms were sweating so hard I thought she'd slip away. She didn't. She just squeezed tighter and whispered, I'm right here. Keep breathing. But the big one, the one I'd been avoiding like a final boss, was the phone call home. I did it on a Sunday night and Rowan was working late, because I knew if she was beside me I'd cling to her like a life raft instead of standing on my own. I sat on the floor of my dorm back against the bed, phone in my lap like a loaded gun. Mom answered on the second ring, cheerful as always. Evie bug. We were just talking about you at lunch after church. I closed my eyes. Mom, I need to tell you and Dad something. Can you put me on speaker? The storm came fast. Silence first, thick and suffocating. Then Mom's sharp intake of breath. Dad clearing his throat the way he does when he's trying not to cry. I told them I was gay. I told them Rowan wasn't just a friend. I told them I wasn't confused, I wasn't rebelling, I wasn't going through a phase. Dad quoted Leviticus. Mom whispered, How could you do this to us? Through tears. They asked if I was willing to repent, to get counseling, to let Jesus fix this. I said no. There was no screaming, no disowning, no slamming down the phone. Just a quiet, awful grief on the other end of the line, like I told them someone had died. We love you, Evelyn, Dad said finally, voice cracking. But we can't celebrate this. Mom couldn't even speak. I heard her sobbing as Dad hung up. I sat there for a long time, phone darkroom, phone hot in my hand, feeling like someone had hollowed me out with a spoon. Rowan came over straight from work. She didn't say it's going to be okay, or they'll come around. She just climbed into bed with me, still wearing her coffee shop apron, and held me while I shook. She didn't try to fix the pain. She just refused to leave me alone in it. Some nights I still wake up gasping, convinced they're never going to speak to me again. Some mornings I check my phone and feel my stomach drop when there's no new message from Mom. But here's what changed. I stopped waiting for permission to exist. I don't flinch anymore when Rowan kisses me goodbye in the quad. I don't delete photos. I don't pray for God to make me straight. I pray for the courage to be exactly who He made me, even when it costs everything. Coming out isn't one moment. It's every single morning you choose to wake up and still be yourself, even when it hurts. And for the first time in 21 years, I'm not asking anyone if that's allowed. I already know the answer. We graduated on a sweltering day in May, when the air was thick with the smell of freshly cut grass and a vague fear of the future. I wore my gown, the square cap tilted by the wind, while Rowan stood at the edge of the bleachers taking photos of me with her old film camera instead of her phone. She said she wanted to capture the moment real. No filter. No one from my family came. The seat beside mine stayed empty. A rectangular silence in a sea of clapping hands. But Rowan was there. And Lauren. And the 3 classmates from that old social psych class who now knew the whole truth about us. They shouted my name louder than the school's loudspeaker. When I walked down the steps to receive my diploma, Rowan vaulted over a row of seats and hugged me right in the middle of the stadium until we almost fell. She whispered in my ear, "So proud of you, Evie Parker. Always." That night we celebrated at a cheap dive bar near campus. Someone played Dancing Queen, and Rowan dragged me onto the floor even though I begged her not to. I laughed until my stomach hurt, hair stuck to my sweaty forehead, dress wrinkled, and for the first time I didn't care who was watching. A month later we moved into a 1-bedroom apartment on the 3rd floor of an old building in the neighborhood, where young people live when they can't yet afford anything nicer. The walls stained yellow from previous tenants, creaky hardwood floors, a kitchen so small that 2 people couldn't cook without touching. The living room window looked out onto a narrow alley, but if you tilted your head just right you could see a sliver of glittering river. Not perfect. Exactly what we needed. On the first day we didn't have a bed. Just an old mattress Rowan dragged over from her old place, laid straight on the floor. We lay there among unopened boxes, eating cold pizza and listening to rain drum on the tin roof above us. "This is our future," I said, half joking. Rowan turned to me, propped her head on her hand and looked at me. "Sounds pretty good, doesn't it?" I nodded. Better than any 5-year plan I'd ever drawn on graph paper. That summer I waited tables at a little queer-owned coffee shop. For the first time people called me Miss or Sis without me having to explain anything. I learned to make ugly latte art and laughed when customers teased me about it. Some days I came home with pockets full of tips, hair smelling of steamed milk, and Rowan was waiting at the door with open arms even when I was soaked from rain and reeking of burnt espresso. We still fought. About whose turn it was to take out the trash. About how I still flinched when my phone buzzed at 2 a.m., thinking it was my mother. About how Rowan sometimes went quiet for too long when I asked if she was okay. But we learned to say "I'm sorry" before falling asleep. We learned not to turn each other's old wounds into weapons. Some nights I still sat on the couch hugging a pillow, watching my phone screen light up and then go dark again. My mother's messages were still just short Bible verses every Sunday. No greeting, no name. I stopped replying. Not out of anger anymore, but because I'd run out of ways to explain. Rowan never pushed me to get over it. She just sat beside me, rested her head on my shoulder, and let me cry if I needed to. Once I asked, voice so small I barely heard myself, "Do you think they'll ever?" She shook her head gently. "I don't know. But I do know one thing. You don't need their acceptance to be allowed to be happy." I believed her. Slowly I started believing myself. The following autumn we hung a big photo in the living room. Rowan and me on the roof of our old school building that night in October years ago. I was wearing the pale pink sweater my mom gave me. Rowan had on her plaid flannel. Our fingers were laced together, grinning like idiots even though we were freezing. Under the photo Rowan stuck a little note with clear tape. "Our chosen home. Doesn't have to be perfect. Just has to be ours." Sometimes I stood in front of it for a long time, looking into the eyes of the girl in the picture. Still scared but brave enough to tell the truth. I didn't look away anymore. Evie is still healing with her family. The road isn't fully lit yet. Sometimes my mother calls on my birthday, stays silent for a few seconds, then hangs up. Sometimes I dream my dad is standing outside the door but never comes in. But I have a home now. A small noisy apartment full of scuffs and music from an old speaker. Someone who loves me even though I once hurt her deeply. A version of myself I no longer want to hide. Loving her didn't fix everything. But for the first time I wasn't running from who I was. This isn't a fairy tale. There's no kiss that wakes the princess. No blessing falling from the sky, no. And they lived happily ever after. It's just the truth. Sometimes painful, sometimes so ordinary it's boring, but gentle enough for us to keep living. And that has been more than enough.